I'm Bruce Dumont and you're watching Aaron 411.
I'm here at the Museum of Broadcast Communications. I'm going to show you a walkthrough of these like on a personal level, but I'm here after hours, so there's nobody, absolutely nobody in this entire museum. So this is where Bruce Dumont's show is filmed, right on the Beltway. So they film it live with the 3 cameras. It's actually pretty simple. It's a cool looking set, and then they have like bookshelves here, and then they have green walls. It's pretty cool. Alright, my name's Hanania, and I'm here with Bruce Dumont at his TV show recording studio. So I was wondering, how did you actually get into the whole TV and media industry?
Well, that goes back to my 10th birthday. My father and I, we went to New York City, and my uncle was the founder of the Dumont Television Network, which was the largest television station in the country at the time. And on my 10th birthday, I went in and I met Captain Video. And for my generation, as a young boy, meeting Captain Video was like the biggest possible thing you could do. And I sat in the spaceship. I used to watch this show every night. I sat in the spaceship. I found it was made of cardboard, and I saw all these really cheap sets. But I met Captain Video and the Video Ranger and a lot of the other people. And it was on my 10th birthday, and I never wanted to do anything but be involved in television ever since.
What's been your favorite moment in your career of media?
Oh boy, it's been a long time since I thought about that. I have to think about it. I think the most fun I ever had was when I started my career. It was the first time I went on the air myself, back in 1973. I did a daily 2-hour talk show. I could do anything I wanted. And I think part of it was the enthusiasm that I was young and just getting started, and everything was kind of new and fresh. And also there was a big story, the Watergate story was unfolding at that time. So I had an opportunity to talk about a really big story as it was unfolding. Nobody was telling me what to do, nobody was telling me who I could have as a guest. And obviously I was many, many years younger than I am right now. And I would say that that was probably the most fun thing I ever had. The very beginning of the career, and each stop along the way also had other sort of high points, but it's getting the start is where that's the answer to this.
We are here at the Museum of Broadcast and Communication. Your show is called Beyond the Beltway. So where did you actually get the name Beyond the Beltway?
Beyond the Beltway was a name that I used when my program I was doing went national for the very first time. This was in 1989. And Beyond the Beltway, first of all, the term Beltway, that references basically a sector of Washington, D.C. There literally is a geographic, or it's a freeway, and it's around Washington, D.C., and that's called the Beltway. And everything in the Beltway, this is government, all major media comes from there. And my point was that all of the major political discussions in the United States, they all took place there, and all the people were talking to each other. They really, I think primarily because of arrogance, they didn't really care what was happening beyond the Beltway. They thought they had all the knowledge. And so to describe what the show means and the philosophy of the show, Beyond the Beltway really says it all. It's people who don't live in the Beltway, who can get together and have discussions of war and peace in the Middle East and all the things that we discussed recently with professors and very bright journalists, and they offer their perspective on what's happening in the world. And it isn't just the official leaders of the Republican or Democratic Party or official executives of the government that are basically talking to the people. Beyond the Beltway is a discussion of real people in real America talking with real passion about real issues.
So what these little books are, like ones like that, they're called TV guides, and we don't have them anymore, but what they were is they would tell you for like the week of what was going to be on TV and when. So now we just have a button, the guide button, that we press, but like when these were around, you have to read through these to see day by day when your show would be on. So they were very popular too, but they don't make them anymore. You're the president of the Museum of Broadcast and Communication. What inspired you to just want to open up a museum?
That goes back to the late 70s. I was producing a program called The Lee Phillips Show on Channel 2, and I would go back in the course of my production, I would go back and I would see how videotape was being handled. This is where everything was a 2-inch videotape, and things were piled up. They were falling all over. Every once in a while somebody would scribble what was on that tape, but pretty much it was, nobody really cared about preservation of television history. And there was a lot of things in there that I thought that future generations would like to be able to see someday. And because I worked at Channel 2, if I wanted to see any tape, I'd just take the tape and give it to my buddy in the tape room. He'd string it up and I could watch whatever I wanted. But it bothered me that future generations would never have a place where they could come in and look at old videotapes. And I figured if the people at Channel 2 were handling the videotapes in such a cavalier way, it was probably taking place at the other stations as well. And so in 1982, I was on the board of the Chicago Television Academy. They were looking for a way to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the chapter. I raised my hand and said, I think we should have a broadcast museum in Chicago. And the president of the chapter said, Dumont, you're a committee of one. Do it.
So speaking of museum, do you have any piece in this museum that you particularly love the story of, or that's your favorite piece?
I think it's probably the Kennedy-Nixon camera. This was the close-up camera used on Senator John Kennedy on September 26th of 1960. The debate, the very first televised presidential debate, was here in Chicago at 630 North McClure Court. The building was recently torn down. But that was the night that looking good on television was as important as what you were saying. Because most people suggest when they look at the turning point in that very close presidential election, they think that it was because of the way in which John Kennedy looked on television. And he looked very good. And Richard Nixon did not look very good. That really set up a time when that was the camera that really, I say, changed television forever, because television and politics have never been the same since that very first debate in Chicago, and so that camera is probably the most important artifact that we have.
Sanguli, and a fun fact about that guy right there on the right, the newer Sanguli, is I at a parade he was the grand marshal at a parade, and his famous thing was always to throw the chickens at the audience. So in the parade, the town had the chickens, so they had the people throw the chickens back at him. So I got one of the chickens and I had him sign it. So I have a chicken signed by Svengoolie, which is kind of cool little story of mine. My question is, what message do you have for people who not only want to go to media, but just for people who are thinking about media?
Well, I think media is more important today than ever before, because there is a thirst for information. It used to be that there were only 3 or 4 oracles of fount of knowledge. It was CBS, ABC, and NBC, and to a lesser extent, on mutual radio. That's changed dramatically in the last 20 years with the growth of cable television, which is omnipresent. And then you have the new media, the phones and all the internet-related stuff. So the fact that more people have a thirst for information, there are more avenues to express that information, I think is very, very good. I think we live in a far more well-informed society today. That's the good news. The bad news is that there isn't anyone that's looking at everything that's being said. And so some people are abusing their power and not telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I think as more and more media tries to compete against others, I think sometimes the presentation of facts has been lost in favor of the presentation of an opinion. And everybody has an opinion. Some of those opinions are based on sound information and facts and knowledge, and some just are not. And I think that the future generation of media is to find people who gravitate to the medium, that really look at it as a way to pursue truth and to share that truth and those facts with the general public and let them make decisions based on important issues, as opposed to just using their platform or their microphone or their camera to ram down their particular political persuasion on somebody else. I think there's too much of that. So I think someone who is aggressively pursuing the truth in an open and honest way and doing it in the media, I think they will not only make media better, they will make the world better.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me this interview.
Very good. Thank you. Good luck.
Hi, from Chicago, this is Bruce Dumont with our Beyond the Beltway analysis of national politics. Today's sugar cakes and projections of the Woman in Window, all of our panel of political insiders.